Speak up for the 50-year-old. We had a bit, Chris, we need to speak right into the microphone for you.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 at 6:02 p.m. For our work session. First on our agenda tonight is the Code Amendments, Title 19.
Mayor and Council, you've got a list in front of you there. You saw it a couple weeks ago as well of several current code requirements, or code updates we were working on. And so tonight we'd like to formally present those to you, get your feedback, see if we're going in the right direction in your eyes, or if there's any direction or comments you want to provide to us, or what you'd like to see in these codes. We're more than welcome to receive any comments.
Okay. Council? Councilman Wilden?
This is just one item, then we can go to other individuals as I continue to scroll down through my notes. Duration of temporary use permit, 9D. Is there a reason why we're just limiting the vaccination or testing clinic to 6 months right now? I would say let's put it a year right now, because
I know as far as building code goes, that things beyond 6 months are technically permanent, and these are temporary structures.
I think COVID's permanent.
Yeah.
well, can you just renew it after 5 months and 29 days?
Yeah. Kevin?
After the near crisis.
Are they allowed to rotate these temporary use permits? Like, I mean, are you allowed to get another one, or when it expires, you have to be for 6 months?
I'll follow up with Mark Chesley on that as far as what the building code says. That's my understanding of the building code, is that beyond 6 months, it has to be a permanent structure. And different building codes apply, different, utilities and whatnot.
Well, is that like international building standards, or is that Saratoga Springs building standards? And you don't know.
Yeah, IBC, UBC, whatever code, but I'll make a note here and follow up with Mark Chesley.
Yeah, if we could just make sure. I mean, it'd be kind of unfortunate if we had to send all the vaccination or testing clinics away because they'd been there 6 months and they're not allowed to be in our city. So I just.
Our land use ordinance would be separate from the building code. Our code does not have that 6 month limitation, so it must be in the building code or residential code. So you could say a year in here, and then they would have to get a new building permit. That's basically what it would be. So you can look at them independently, or you can look at them together and make it consistent. It's for that.
I'm fine with 6 months or a year as long as they can renew based upon whatever. We just don't want it to be, hey, 6 months or 12 months and we're into whatever. It's like, well, you can't come back because of our building code for 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
We can go to others as I'm scrolling down.
Okay. Order.
All right, 190608, I guess some clarification as to where and whether we can regulate some of these things. Under F, I'm talking about the artificial turf. F3, professionally installed, isn't there like a state law that allows homeowner to, or can we require that it be professionally installed as opposed to allowing a homeowner to install it? I know we can't require them to use a general contractor to do stuff in their own home.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, generally speaking, if I want to do an improvement on my home, even though I'm not a licensed electrician or whatever, I can do that.
Right.
So I think that might be tricky.
So I guess I would like us to look into that to see whether we're requiring something that we can't require. I mean, I'm fine with leaving in the according to manufacturer's instructions. I think that's probably just generally a good idea. And then the other one was the 25%. Well, I'm just wondering where that, is that,
A lot of this are, stuff I looked at other codes, just at some point, you're going to have to put a percentage, either all or less. It's going to be up to you.
I mean, they're still required to have 25% vegetation, right, under our,
There's supposed to be a minimum percentage of ground cover or tree coverage, canopy, green space, yeah.
so I mean, even if they have this under a tree, like I guess I'm just trying to figure out why we're saying that 25% of the front yard. I think you're gonna end up with less desirable installations that way.
And we do have a resident now that has put their whole entire front yard.
Right, and I mean, I understand the desire to want them to still put in some plants and stuff like that, not to just have a flat green square. Having some trees and stuff for shade and whatnot is gonna make this work better, but I think the 25%, we're probably still gonna be running afoul of proposed legislation. Granted, it's proposed and not passed, but I guess I'm trying to find a rationale why we would pick 25, and I'm not seeing it, but perhaps other people.
So Dave, what's the requirement for landscaping in the front yard?
Not 50, I want to say it was 25. I'll look it up here.
Okay. You mean how much landscaping has to be in the front yard? It's 25, I'm pretty sure.
We require 25% live vegetation in the
Yep.
front yard.
Yeah.
And so.
But that can, I mean, my understanding is that interpretation is like the tree canopy counts as that coverage.
Yeah, and any.
So you could
Yeah.
you could still have artificial turf underneath the tree coverage and still meet your 25%
When we
live
look at,
vegetation.
when we look at landscape plans, we, look at the top-down type, say, what's the size of maturity? That counts as the coverage towards a percentage.
My personal preference would be to not set a percentage and just to continue to require that 25% live vegetation. And have that be the percentage that we worry about, but I'm one of five, so. And then, I think those were the main two that I was just kind of, trying to understand why those were included as opposed to
From
anything
a
else,
work
so.
session perspective, is it okay? Are you
Yeah,
finished?
yeah.
Because let's talk about this while we're talking about this. I personally like the 25%. Again, the proposed legislation might make this a moot point. I think it's better to do baby steps because we can see where there's potential problems, and then we can always go more. It's really hard to go less. And then my real concern, again, it's the heat island thing, and so I get the tree canopy, but at 3 feet, maintain a 3-foot diameter around a tree, that's 1.5 feet radius. You have a tree with any kind of caliper, it's dead. That tree is not surviving. I don't care how much you're gonna water it more than you water your grass. Because even with a grass, like I have with grass around a tree, the tree wasn't growing. I tripled the size of the ring around it, and the tree just started taking off. 1.5 feet, sure, maybe on a brand new house when all the 1.5 inch caliber trees, but you start getting a decent sized tree in our city, we can get trees with a good 1.5 feet. Well, now you have 4 inches from turf to the tree. So you're not going to get those canopies that you're talking about. So I would actually be more willing to go higher on lower on the percentage and have a bigger base around that tree to really allow for bigger trees. Because that's what's going to make Saratoga Springs keep its nice temperature, are more trees.
Right.
That's why we plant so many trees in our parks. We plant so many trees everywhere because we try and be good neighbors. We require a certain amount of trees in most neighborhoods, right? You have to.
And I'm open to that. My concern with the 25% is somebody who's doing this is obviously concerned about, is trying to cut down on their watering. They're not going to put 25% artificial turf and 75% regular turf.
Well,
They're
no,
going to
not
put
regular
25%
turf, but-
artificial turf and 75% rock.
Well, they can put other ground covers and things.
Right.
But the rock has to have bushes in it.
Right, and that's why I say, like, to me, the 25% live vegetation is more important than what percentage of artificial, what the underlayment is.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm
But-
saying. I'm willing to maybe drop that percent or whatever, but again, it's a lot harder to make it more than it is less. But then that 3 feet, I would say,
Maybe expand that.
make that
I'm
more.
trying to think, I think I've probably got at least 2 or 3 feet.
You probably have 4 to 5 feet. You probably have 2.5.
Well, we have small trees.
Yeah, but if you really want a tree, 2.5 feet radius or a 5-foot diameter
Yeah.
is that tree. Even the big trees in Saratoga Springs development, they really have rock and stuff, and it's about 5 feet that's
Yeah.
around that with the no rock. And I do appreciate that we have no inorganic on that around that
Right.
tree. That it has to be like a
So the-
natural bark
so
or something.
The roots can breathe.
Yeah, the city standard right now is just any landscape, you're supposed to have 3-foot diameter free from rock and debris.
Right, but that's when you don't have all of a sudden a bunch of plastic around that space now. And you're not getting the tree's not stealing the water from the grass, because a lot of trees you see the roots and stuff. They're
Right.
stealing that water because they're trying to grow. So for me, I would like to maybe see if it's artificial turf, 5 feet, and then I would be okay if you really are wanting that, Chris, maybe 15%. Sorry, not to cover more than, you have the 25, so you can maybe say not to cover more than whatever, that number might be.
Right.
But I just want to avoid just the big all astroturf. And then Mayor actually made a comment when you were talking about the professionally installed, because we sort of agree, but maybe we meet the professional standard.
Right,
So we don't
and
say
that's fine.
professionally installed, but it meets professional standards. So when the inspector goes, he can go and pull, make sure it's not lifting. and
Right.
things like
I mean, technically, like, I did my own basement, but I still had
that. Permits.
permits and I still had inspectors come out and inspect it to make sure it was done to code.
Yeah.
Like, we still require people to do it properly.
Yeah, like solar panels, we
Right.
require, you don't get to just put solar
Professional
panels.
standard on installation.
Well, that's the manufacturer's instructions. I think I think it just reiterating it, just saying professional standard manufacturer's instructions, then it's just letting them know.
Some sort of industry standard.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and I think,
Some sort of industry best practice that they follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just was, when I saw that, I'm like,
So
I
is
don't know
it-
if we can even require that, so.
Are we saying that, is this a permitted install then that gets inspected?
this is a permanent install that will get inspected.
We're
once.
technically requiring them to pull a
A
permit.
permit, we're saying a
Okay.
permit, just like you would for solar panels. And then I think we need to provide measures to prevent runoff onto an adjacent property. Like, that's so vague.
Well, and I had this conversation with an installer at a company up in Draper. I said, well, what do you do when you're on a slope, water's gonna permeate through here, grass and whatnot, you could have topsoil. That will soak in a lot more water. This doesn't
does.
soak in any.
It usually needs to take it to the gutter.
Yeah, what do you do on a slope? Obviously, you may not be able to pump up either. What do you do on an install when you have water? It's like, oh, we just we don't do it, he said personally, our firm. But we just tell the group you had to put in like a French drain. Well,
French
the
drain.
water still needs to go somewhere. And-
The French drains usually go to the gutter, yeah,
But if you're on the downslope though,
or the drain until,
Well, yeah, I mean, but you can just create a sump and let them soak in. And that's what my friends have had to do, because they all they'll have back slopes, walk-in basements, and they'll have to do that.
yeah, so that to
Of
me,
my
I'm looking at code enforcement, right? Like, I just worry, we're setting our code enforcement up to have to pick and choose, and like, what does provide preventative runoff on adjacent properties? So what the best thing to do is maybe say provide when they do their permit, when they go for their permit, they actually will then say, this is how we're going to handle runoff or something. They document that in their permit, and then it puts the onus back on the resident, because if they don't follow it based on their permit pull, then now all of a sudden the inspector can say, hey, this isn't what you said you were gonna do in your permit. But just a thought. But, yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that, I think Shelley is probably rolling her eyes a little bit, because AstroTurf has always been a big no-no for her, and she really sold me on the heat islands, and that's why if we can prevent these trees from dying, if we can, then we can prevent the heat islands with the canopies from the trees. So, appreciate it, thank you.
Can I just speak on those two items? I'm supportive of increasing the diameter, is that what we're gonna call it? To whatever you said, 5 feet, that's fine. And I think bumping up the percentage makes sense, because I'm starting to think about it as 25% astroturf, right? And then 25% vegetation, then they have 50% that they're gonna dump with rock.
From their driveways.
Yeah, or, okay, so that, you know, whatever percent. I think your heat island would be slightly less with like this versus asphalt.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the trees, that's the key.
Yep.
That'll help us, then the grass won't, because, oh, sorry, the last thing I forgot to mention, because dogs do not go to the bathroom on AstroTurf. It's too hot. They're gonna go on their neighbor's real grass. So we are creating a little bit of a problem there, but, they will walk, they will,
That people.
I now want
won't poop on
AstroTurf.
My lawn. Like,
no.
I don't see the problem.
no, no, it's the people who own the AstroTurf who have their own dogs, send them
Yeah.
out, and they go next door and poop on their yard. And then also this, I'll save it actually for council reports. There was around the same thing. Okay.
Councilman Podesta?
Yeah, just to piggyback on kind of my support on not having a 25% as a max. However, when you look at the 25% vegetation including a canopy, if you have a 60 by 60 yard, basically that 25% is taken up by one tree. And so if you're looking at like one tree planted and the rest is astroturf, that's, something to consider. And so maybe it's something to where we have that maximum increase to a higher percentage, that's maybe like 50 or 75%, so that there is variations that are put in there besides just one tree and astroturf.
If they're putting in one big tree, it's creating the shade,
And just like a corner, like if you took a 60 by 60 yard, right, that's plantable area, and you divide that into quadrants, one quadrant would just be one canopy tree. And then you have 3 quadrants, so it would be nothing else that,
So I'm not passionate about this one way or another, just to be clear.
oh, I think you are.
Well, now I am, jerk. No, don't put that in the minutes. Dang it, I forgot what I was gonna say now. Oh, well, it already exists in code right now.
The
They could do a
25%,
tree and then fill the rest with rock. So,
okay.
I mean, you either fix them both, or
Yeah.
to me, this isn't a whole lot different than,
Don't we have a grass requirement?
There's,
Where the state might change the law, but
yeah, state's looking to change that.
we have a grass requirement.
It has to be landscaping. Landscaping can be grass, it can be trees, it can be shrubs. It just gives you-
Xeriscape can be
You just need that
landscaping.
25% corner or corner side or front yard.
You can technically do all rock as long as you have 25% live vegetation.
Unless you're in an HOA. with that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm knowing that, I'm fine with lifting that percentage as well.
So just if I could jump in, so is a consensus on the screen there on subsection or subline 5V, is that to take it out?
Take it to 100% and let's come back to, you have to have 25 or whatever percent vegetation coverage.
So we can just strike out 5?
I think it's just cleaner.
Sorry, I just rolled past it.
5 is the 25%.
Well, and maybe replace it with, and maybe Kevin wouldn't like this because it's referencing another code, but specifically say you have to still continue to meet the minimum vegetation requirements. I would put that right in
Why
there.
don't we reference the other code and then Kevin won't mind as much?
No, we can say that.
What?
I think it's
I
okay.
don't like that.
Well, because I'm double yeah, maybe,
I like it when we reference things.
but maybe I would just say
Like that. better.
not,
Not when we reference, when we actually just state code again.
well, yeah, and Michael, or Councilman McComber, sorry about that. Or should I say what Podesta says, McCamber? Is that what he says?
Your dad can never get.
Oh, my
McCumber. But I wouldn't strike 5, but I'd replace it to say minimum vegetation requirements, it is identified in section blah, 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 or must be met.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's good.
I think it's cleaner,
and then you want to change 6 to 5
5
foot.
feet.
And then, I mean, this is just work session, so you can bring it back, but like, I guess figure out what we can do around line 3.
On which one?
The professional.
Oh, yeah, we can just strike out, professional, say install according to manufacturer's instructions.
That's fine with me.
I don't know.
And then maybe think about the wording some more on 9.
9.
Is it 9? Just to me, it's so vague.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which one's 9?
9 was the drainage, that was very like, how do you determine that they did a sufficient job?
Oh, yeah. Well, I liked what you suggest, is they put a plan in the permit. Just like when I filed for my basement years ago, I had to put the fire extinguisher plan and all that stuff.
There's a couple of things.
Not extinguisher, I'm sorry, the fire alarms, yeah.
Smoke detectors.
But that's what my hand was, no.
What were you cooking in the basement?
Yep.
Hold on a second. 190511, food trucks. We say you can do food trucks, then we make it really, 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 really hard to do it.
Okay.
In residential areas. Why are we picking 10 PM for something to stop when they have to be done?
Noise ordinance.
Well, here's my question. In the summertime, it's light till 9:50 in the middle of summer, and you could have a waffle love truck doing desserts. And it could be for a private party at someone's house. Why does that have to shut down at 10?
Because our noise ordinance is.
How noisy is a waffle love truck?
It
Depends on whether they're running a generator.
It's the party at the waffle.
Yeah, but they could be plugged into the house. That's allowed.
House, I'm okay with it running.
No, we've looked at this, it's obviously primarily a residence, a home, not a place of business. And so, yeah, we are, proposing standards where you can operate a business in a residence, obviously with some standards. And the noise ordinance applies as well.
So I want to look at some of these things to see how we can make it less restrictive, because we say, there's going to be a lot of places where you could not have a food truck at your party because of where we say you can and can't park. So there's some things we can do to make that easier and still satisfy the needs of the city. I'd like to try and do that.
So what we've tried to do with food trucks is, if it's on private property, say la vie. If they're trying to be out in streets, if they're going to be out in streets or blocking
Yeah, but we say private
sidewalks.
property, but you can't take any of your parking spots.
Well, but
Yeah.
for example, we're trying to give people the option to do a food truck if they want to do it as part of their party. It's, other people can park on the street, but just not the food truck being parked on the street. Now, there's some code, I was just reading through this, and there is some code proposed at the legislature that we'd actually, like, for example, number 4. Number 4, we'd probably have to strike in, 2 months anyway, because number 4, a reciprocal business license cannot be required if some of that legislation passes. So some of this stuff might be moot by the time it gets to the planning commission anyway. But from a pragmatic standpoint, we've tried to limit food trucks because, again, that's probably where we're going to get the most complaints if we just let these things.
I don't want someone obviously running a restaurant
Right,
in the neighborhood.
right.
But if I want to hire a food truck to come to a birthday party, I don't want it to be so hard because I'm 9 feet from a manhole and not 10 feet from a manhole.
Right. And I think that's less of an issue. It's
Well, it's in the code.
Yeah, exactly.
Why put it in the code?
Why put it in the code if we're never going to enforce it?
Well, if a neighbor could, and then we would. If a neighbor calls, then you would.
Okay?
And to your comment on
It's
the,
super restrictive.
to your comment on the parking, you could park on a driveway, because a driveway on a single-family home is not required parking. It's only required 2 stalls and a garage, and homes are required to have the 2 cars. So you could have an event and have them park on your driveway and not run afoul of any parking ordinance.
Yeah, there's so many times you can't park in a driveway, though. Driveway may be too sloped, and, there's a lot of reasons they might need to park on
What,
the street if it's allowed.
What would
And
the
we're
re-
very restrictive.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Now, what required parking would this entail then, that we can't use?
Say you have a complex that has, stalls for guest parking, we'd obviously have to look at it is, do they have an extra guest parking, or do they write at the number where technically they couldn't park in a guest stall? We'd have to look at that on a case-by-case basis.
I would be fine, honestly, because we're putting like time restrictions and they can't be there, just striking 3D2.
They have to have a special event permit anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're gonna be operating day in and day out in that guest parking. It's
Well, they don't. hold on, I didn't think you needed that in a residential.
Number 3, event permits are required for food trucks to operate when D, within any residential zone.
Well, with these restrictions, they can operate in residential zone following, subject to the following conditions.
They don't need they don't need a permit.
Event permit is required for them to operate within any residential zone, subject to the following additional conditions. So they have to have an event permit and meet these.
See, we should not require an event permit for someone to hire a Waffle Love truck to come to your house for a party. That's onerous. I don't have to get a special event permit to have a clown come to my house for a birthday party.
He requires one,
The
though.
food trucks are killing a lot of the brick business, and so you're creating an unfair advantage to your brick and mortar business, right?
Why can't I have a brick and mortar business cater my party?
So the,
Well, no, but if you're allowing food trucks and doing all that, you're making, it's a lower barrier of entry, and so then you're making it so that the wild.
Well, they still have to have a business license to operate.
Yeah, but a truck is a lot less than the lease in the building.
Well, yeah,
So the permit's only required if it's operating on a city street. If they want to do it on their driveway, we don't require any permit.
Okay, that's not how I read this, so maybe we need to clarify that.
Oh, yeah, Tippy's the expert. Tippy drafted
Yeah,
this.
do whatever you want.
But 3 does say event permits are required, period.
yeah,
That's only, yeah, so in subsection 2, it says if it's, that no permit is required. So this is saying only if it's on a public street, sidewalk, right-of-way, park strip, or
Food truck
city-owned
may operate
property.
without a permit within non-residential or agricultural zones, not a residential zone.
That is correct.
And so if it's an HOA privately owned street, then we wouldn't regulate it either. And a lot of our streets are private.
I'm not worried about the
Where I read
HOAs.
this, if I wanna have Waffle Love park in my driveway to cater my kid's birthday party,
You have to have a
I
special use
have to have
permit.
a special event permit.
Period, even if it's in private property.
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
So you could say,
In a residential zone.
yeah, you could exempt, I mean, if you wanted to make it so that D, they didn't have to have a permit, you could say, are required for food trucks to operate, and then go, within residential zones, permits are not required so long as they meet these
Following
conditions.
additional conditions. That would then be.
That would give you the exemption that you're looking
Wouldn't you
for.
wanna, now we're just filling out the code, but wouldn't you wanna just move that up to 2, where we're already talking about things you don't have to have a permit for?
You could. Yeah, I mean, again, this is draft, it's gonna go to the
Right.
planning commission.
Maybe
And,
move it up or put it there, but.
and
Figure
to
out a way
be
make
fair,
that clear.
But that, I
to be
thought-
fair, depending on how some legislators get their way, this whole section may go away.
It might, but it's proposed, and I
Right.
don't know if they have the facts.
Yeah, we'll see. It's always a bet. We'll put some odds on it later.
I don't know if that was intentional. Maybe Tippy could speak to that, because there's also 2B, subsection 2B that says a food truck is not required to obtain a permit to operate at a food truck event that takes place on private property within the city, regardless of whether the event is open or closed to the public.
So 2B.
That was my
and
recollection of
3B
it.
now conflict.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's just
country.
make sure
So-
there's not
Yeah.
conflict.
In the state code, they refer to food truck event and food truck event permit. So I think we're just copying the state code language for food trucks under that.
Just look, I guess,
They're contradictory, so
Yeah.
maybe just when you're working on it, just.
Clear up the
2B
language.
2B and 3D are,
Great feedback.
That certainly wasn't the intent. If it was on private
Yeah.
property, we weren't requiring a permit.
And I have no idea how I completely missed 1929, but dockless shared mobility devices. I completely missed it, so I can't even speak to this section.
I was back though on your comment to the food truck though with the noise. That's probably the bigger concern if it's gonna run late, because they're deafening it at Patriot
So-
Park
so
without a
we-
house
so-
to echo it back at you.
So if we're at Neptune Park for Splash, they have to leave at 10, no matter what's going on at Neptune Park.
They
I
have
think
to
we
what?
actually have a variance for splash days and stuff.
A city-sponsored special event.
they usually bail before 10.
They do, Bill.
They usually bail when the fireworks start.
We
Yeah.
have, we have the noise ordinance variance for the carnival, and I think the food trucks were,
They're part of it.
We could look to see how that interplays.
The carnival
That's
goes
great
till
feedback.
midnight.
Okay.
Did you get a note on that, Tippy?
Which one?
10 o'clock shutdown, you know, whether it's a special event or whether it's in the residential neighborhood. So,
And maybe if you want to go past 10, you have to have a special permit for it. I don't know.
what about the early bird special? Aren't you starting earlier anyway?
I am. Yeah. Wow. When are we talking about bonuses? Holy smokes.
Doesn't start till tomorrow.
I would agree, Mayor, like past 10 o'clock, running a generator. I mean, that would be like camping at Little Sahara,
I think
but
past
in your
9
house.
o'clock.
Well, no, that's, I agree with you. Like but if they're plugged into a house and they're not,
Yeah,
if they're on owner's power with owner's permission, I don't think it's that noisy.
no, it's not that noisy. I'm just thinking, it's noisy at Patriot Park with a field behind it. You have houses to bounce that back like a sound wall to the neighbor's house.
Right.
It just, there was a thing down in Jacobs Ranch and they had a food truck there and you could barely talk to the
Illegally?
people standing next to you, illegally.
Yeah.
But you could barely stand next to the people and talk to them because the generator was so loud.
How was
Right.
your illegal food that you purchased?
I don't know.
Food trucks, even if they're plugged in, it's, to justify a food truck, you're talking 30, 40 people.
Maybe.
That's a lot of noise too, still. So the noise ordinance in the city is 10 PM. If we want to change that, we need to have
Yeah.
a conversation.
No, and that's a good point. I was just questioning the 10 because in the summer, again, it's light till, you know, we're, like when we're on the lake, we pull off the lake, we're getting home at 10:15 at night because it's still light.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do you want to put off the discussion on the?
No, it's gotta go through planning. It's gonna come to us.
Has to go through planning.
Yeah, it's gotta, yeah. I didn't get
It's
to
sort
look
of
at it.
generic anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
And please know, some of this may change in just a couple of weeks, depending on how the legislature works out. But we've at least got a starting point.
I
We'll start
don't do,
working.
our ordinance is based on legislation. We can make the change after.
Right. No, we understand.
Okay.
He's gonna put his foot
Anything
down.
else for Title 19?
Macumber's taking a stand.
Okay. Perfect.
So there were some maps and graphics as part of this as well. And so the graphics, the first image, I think it's on page, 14? Just real quick on that one. The council wanted us to, we had approached the county with an attempt to try and get them to rezone the Lake Mountain hillside area and prevent them from expanding rock quarry operations. And they came back and said, great, your solution is you probably need to annex those into the city so that you can control it. Otherwise, we're kind of good allowing that. And that was kind of the feedback we got from that approach the county. Again, we give this graphic to you just so you've got it. Just from a visual standpoint, you can see what our annexation boundary is. If you want us to amend the annexation boundary, that's going to be a Title 19 adjustment, and we'll need to go back and do that. If you notice to the west, there's a dotted line that we added. That's pretty much the slope line. Everything east of that dotted line is going to drain into Saratoga Springs. Everything west of that line will drain towards Eagle Mountain and out towards that valley. And so
That's the peak of
That's
the
the ridge?
that's kind of the slope line of where the drainage basins go to. It doesn't, I mean, it bifurcates those properties. So, you know, if you guys, you know, wanted us to amend the annexation boundaries, we'd probably need to follow the property lines a little bit. And not too big of a deal on that, but again, that's a pretty large annexation adjustment if you choose for us to go that way. And again, this is just more the policy side of you wanting to prevent additional
If you
mining
look at that,
operations.
though, it's a large annexation, but it's also a large gravel pit if we don't.
That's true.
And it's also a large mountain.
Where's the,
An asset with
where's
trails
the
and-
property in question on here?
So, again, if you look to the western edge of the map, you'll notice that dotted line, that's the ridge line. And
Right.
basically, everything east of the line drains to Saratoga.
No, I'm talking about the current county property is,
The current county is everything outside.
I know.
So it's everything inside kind of the boundary lines on that map, and I apologize.
Anything colored is
So okay, let me change my question. This conversation was started because of an operation that's in the county. Where is that on this map?
It's in the,
In the orange?
Orange area, yeah.
Thank you. It's in our current annexation boundary.
Yeah, part of it is, yeah,
Part of it's not.
part of it's not.
We could bump around that, though.
That little their operation is in that little orange square.
Yeah, and again, you know,
So let's bump around that.
the state and the federal land is probably less of a, you know, it may not be less of an issue. I mean, Sitla is always looking into mining and other things, but again, there's quite a large area, and again, we just wanted to provide this to you for the conceptual discussion of, if you would like us to amend the annexation boundary, these are the things that we need to look at.
I know we kind of, tongue in cheek, pitched a little bit of it when they tried to rename Lake Mountain, Eagle Mountain. So I don't necessarily want to, be annexing on their side of the mountain. So I would say like any of these parcels where 50% or more is on our side of the runoff divide. I would, anything that, like.
So basically, those blue properties to the western
Like
edge.
59, 150, 21 that's down there is completely on the other side of the mountain. I don't know why we need to annex that.
Right.
Why don't we just do the peak? And, because there's, I mean, hello.
It's a natural
we
barrier.
have Draper, it's a natural barrier, and we have Draper that's in 2 counties.
Right.
in-
That's what I'm trying to avoid. So like going over the.
So why don't we just have the ridge be,
The boundary.
just like the river should have had the
Cut
boundary
some
between
parcel
us
in
and the.
Yeah, I think it's probably safest to not cut parcels in half.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's my.
pragmatically speaking, I mean, but again, you
But a
know,
lot of those parcels that we're cutting in half, this is the slope.
Right.
We're not, Wilden might build a house, but the
Well,
rest
and
of us
the thing
won't.
is, it's our annexation boundary. We can always, if they come in,
Yeah.
we can always readjust the annexation boundary if they decide they want to be in our city.
right.
And if they decide they want to be in the other city, then we adjust the annexation boundary there. I wish the Jordan River would have been the boundary. It's natural, it's better for the environment, it's better for sewage passage and all the things that has to go there. But no, that's not what happened, because one city was the godfather for a few years. And so we have a weird boundary between the 2 cities. Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs was smart about it, and we have a power corridor that is a natural boundary between the 2 cities, because it makes sense to not try and cross that huge power corridor. It makes sense to have this, and then let the landowners, when they actually come in to annex, this is just an annexation boundary, determine where they want to be.
So,
One thing,
We're talking about annexing this land, not annexation.
So first we're doing the
Yeah,
boundary,
first to the
and then we'll
boundary.
annex it.
So,
one thing to keep in mind, just whatever you do, you may not be able to stop any mining operations. So the state of Utah issues the mining permits, and their position is that they're exempt from any land use ordinance.
But they'll come to the land, they'll come to the annexed city or entity, county, and ask their opinion. They do that.
Sure, yeah, Utah County kind of took the position, that wasn't anything, that didn't have anything to do with us.
But on the city-owned roads,
And-
can't we limit it to nothing larger than a half-ton truck full of dirt?
What's that?
nice try. We've fought
Just
that
tongue
one.
in cheek.
So again, just more on the concept, take a look at this, and then we'll reach out to you individually and talk a little
Okay.
bit. I think that you can see our current annexation boundary, I think that line makes sense. There may be another property or 2 that we want to expand that to. Most of those, though, appear to be like, federal land or something like that. So we may want to take a look at those kinds of things, but generally speaking, we're going to be adjusting that boundary probably a little bit if we're using that ridge line and the 50% of the property kind of as that metric.
I think that's a good way
Kinda
to
makes
look at it.
sense.
Yeah.
So, again, we'll bring that back. Then the last map that we wanted to point you to, the green maps, I think are, what we're trying to show on these page 15 and 16, where we've got an updated map here that I think tells the story a little bit better. In essence, what we were trying to do was show where internal ADUs are prohibited versus permitted. And so, again, the green is a little overwhelming. An updated map up here on the screen shows the red where they'd be allowed. It's a little difficult because, like, for example, on an 8.5 by 11, if you've got the property lines on it, it gets difficult to see it. But on the graphics, it appears. But we're working on that, and we'll have that going to the Planning Commission for an amendment to those areas. it appears that would preclude, according to these maps, we're about 15% of the city's residential areas would be banned from IADUs at this point. So you could increase those areas by an additional 10% going forward. Councilmember Carn, right before this meeting, pointed out that Beacon Point allows ADUs, and so we do need to pull Beacon Point out of this.
Well, in Founders Boulevard, I thought that was part of that.
It is.
Yeah.
Founder,
So
all of
it's-
Beacon Point
All Beacon Point has it in there.
is allowed.
It's allowed in their community
It's
plan.
marked wrong on the map.
The map, we're gonna have to adjust the map. So again, in concept, I think this is what you were looking for was, all of the existing housing, since those came in prior to IADUs being allowed, we were looking to try and, hold those off. Again, on the map up here, you've got some Burgundy, and the Burgundy properties are the lots that are too small, that wouldn't be allowed, ADUs anyway, IADUs, because of their lot sizes, per the state code. So that map there has the most comprehensive, updated information at this point. We'll make some tweaks and we'll run that through the planning commission. Again, I think this was the bulk of it. Jeremy has some engineering code amendments that are coming forward. He apologizes he couldn't be here tonight and we did not have a Zoom link set up for him. But the engineering standards are kind of also coming forward from an update on that, and that involves the curb cuts and some of the other things that we've been looking at in that world. So unless there's any other questions on this, Mayor and Council, I think we've got the feedback.
This goes to Planning Commission this coming Thursday?
Title 19, it will go to Planning Commission. They'll be able to make their recommendations, and then we'll move it forward. Stroud, is it on their next meeting?
No, because we've got to tweak these now, then do the public notice, but it'll be the next available and we can get it on.
Probably the 3
Probably.
weeks.
And when does
We're
that
a
hit
month
plan-
out from seeing
When
it
does that hit
again.
planning?
Probably a month out before you see it again.
Okay,
Month for this, for us? Okay.
okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, real quick, 2022 council assignments. Questions from the council? Comments, concerns?
Mayor and Council, do you want to move forward to,
This one shouldn't take long unless we've got a lot of concerns.
that's true. Good
I
call.
got a lot of concerns.
You do? We just need to
A
change
lot
the
of
mayor.
problems I have.
We just need to change the mayor pro tem, I guess.
We do need the Mayor Pro Tem,
So,
and that would be approved first meeting in February.
okay.
So we just need to know who you would like that to be for 2021.
It has been Chris.
I think it needs to be, historically, tradition, Stephen or myself, is typically how they do it. We do the mayor pro temp. Either one of us, and then next year it will be the other one. And then that way, going into an election, if anyone chooses to run for reelection, they can't run as mayor pro temp on the reelection. So that's typically.
If that's the way it's done,
That's how we've done it. So typically the.
I love
people-
tradition.
It just makes it so it depoliticizes the
Yeah.
mayor pro temp.
I'm good with that.
So
It's a lot of responsibility.
here.
Well, whenever I'm at, the mayor steps up.
That's right. I think in 12 years I missed twice, 3 times.
Whatever. Stephen 1 year, me the other.
Whatever, that's fine. I can do it.
I'm sorry, that's not clear direction.
Let's go with.
I'm going to say Wilden this year, Macomber next
So
year.
2022, Wilden, got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Wilden's way this year.
Where
But
there's
we
a
know
Wilden,
you
there's a
won't miss
way.
a meeting now.
That's right. I only
So-
missed 2 for Chris, so he had something to do.
As far as the other assignments, do you have other changes or assignments, liaison assignments that you want to?
I didn't unless anybody had concerns.
Okay,
Okay. Then we will keep them the same.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, we will move on to the policy session.
Sorry,
Oh,
what is Central Lands? Is that the Traverse Sentinel Lands?
It should be Sentinel lands,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
You're
That's
not
fine. I
even-
just was like, what, I haven't been doing anything with any Central Lands.
Well, you're not assigned to it. It says Chris Porter.
Poorer.
Oh, yes.
That's the other
And we
guy.
can also spell my name right.
And you don't even have the hard name.
okay. We'll move to the policy session for the city of Saratoga Springs at 6:46 PM on January 18th. Present tonight, I have Councilman Podeska, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Porter, and Councilman Carnes. So we do have a quorum. I've asked Councilman McComber to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Wilden to lead us in our pledge.
Our dear and gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee as a city of Saratoga Springs, we're truly grateful for all the many blessings Thou hast given us. We're grateful for this beautiful community in which we get to call home, and we're grateful for the sacrifices that have been made in the past that have allowed us to self-govern in this great country. Heavenly Father, we ask Thou special blessing upon us that as we talk about budgets and other items today, that we'll be able to look at them from an eye of not just what will benefit the city today, but into the future. Also, Heavenly Father, we ask a special blessing upon the people of this state and this country and around the world who have a cold and are sick from various illnesses that are in the area, whether it be Omicron or cold or the flu, that they will be comforted and that they will be able to get better quickly. And we ask a blessing upon the leaders of this country and the state, that they will make decisions that are truly going to benefit the state from a health perspective and not politically minded. Heavenly Father, we ask that Thou will bless the first responders in our city, that they will be protected as they serve this community. And we also ask a blessing upon all those serving abroad and locally in the military, that they will be blessed as well. We love Thee and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on. We have a presentation from North Utah County Transit Study. Trustee Acerson, former Mayor Acerson.
May I approach the bench? No, I don't know if that's how it goes, but I just applaud, being a former mayor and former city council member, it's fun to be on this other side and see the great work that you're doing and the level of detail that you go through. And, it is kind of an arduous task to do what's right, but thank you. I'm sure the citizens of Saratoga Springs appreciate that for the most part. Sometimes they get sideways with you.
The love-hate relationship.
Yeah, anyway.
Spoken like a former mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you have a great staff and, without them, you wouldn't be able to accomplish the good work that you do. So I just want to applaud your efforts in that behalf. And so tonight, representing UTA and bringing forth this transit study for your cities, both Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs, it's been a long time coming. I think it's hopefully moving the needle in a good direction where we can have some focal points where we can actually start seeing some ways to bring back to your cities for your investment in transit and transportation some measurable pieces that can show that there's more than just faith. We're actually moving forward. So AT is with us tonight, and Sean Seeger, and AT will kind of go over the study that he was involved with, and so I'd like to turn the time to him. And I'm here to help answer questions, but I think he'll have the detail that maybe is needed, so thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, staff. I'm A.T. Stoddard. I'm with LSC Transportation Consultants, and we worked with actually a number of partners. The project and client was MAG, but we had partners with the two cities and with UTA, UDOT, all participating as well. We did put together a final report. I'm going to be fairly brief in my comments, but certainly could address more questions in detail if you have them. Just to give you an idea of the study process, of course, we get caught in the midst of pandemic and had challenges and meetings and scheduling things, but we got through that. But we started out just looking at all the plans that have been done to address public transit, and particularly in the area, along with transportation plans, and then looked at the changes that had taken place, where you had direct bus service into downtown Salt Lake City, that then being replaced by the front runner connection, and you ended up with a connector service going over to Lehigh Station. Looked at changes in ridership and what those patterns were. We did do survey with the community and looked at the growth that has been occurring and continues and is projected here, and how to address that as well. And then really with that, an assessment of transit needs and the patterns. And one of the things that we looked at this is there have been changes in travel patterns where so much in the past was oriented to the north, Salt Lake City area and the Salt Lake Valley. There are far more people now coming because of the growth in Lehigh and areas in Utah County as well. So there's a lot more demand. It's not as one directional as it was in the past. It's going both directions. And we heard that in the survey comments that people wanted service down to Orem and Provo area as well. So we put together scenarios, and we'll cover those, but I wanted to just talk about kind of key objectives. We put this together and trying to meet all of the various requirements. A big one was to increase the bus service. What you have had for the last several years is pretty limited service. It's commuter oriented. You have several runs in the morning and a couple in the afternoon, midday, basically nothing. And it really is oriented to commuters, gets them over to Lehigh Station, and then that route actually then turns and runs down to the UVU campus. Out of this, you wanted to identify a definitive capital project. We've done that. I'll let you know what that is. But then looking at express bus service, identifying park and ride lots, and we've come up with those. We were asked for service to the new Tyson plant, some of the other major employers in the area, if we could serve them, and then increasing, of course, bus service again and addressing density. With that, in terms of recommendations, we broke these into kind of short-term or immediate actions that can be taken, and then intermediate and longer term. The immediate actions, some of those could be put in place immediately. Others need to get started. And so the first one is just identifying and starting to develop park and ride lots. I'll show you on the map here shortly. And you have the handout that was given to you. And if anyone wants copies, I do have that as well. But we identified two key locations for park and ride lots. The idea being that these would be multimodal, so they would not just be for people accessing bus service, but you could have van pools operating out of there, car pools, and then being served by the bus. Depending upon where the final lot selection is made, there could be joint development, commercial development there, transit supportive, higher density, combinations of commercial and residential. So that's a possibility. With the fixed route bus service, the recommendation is to shorten up the length of the route that currently serves your two communities. Bring it back to the park and ride lot, and then go to the American Fork Station rather than up to Lehigh Station, but run that more frequently throughout the day. The goal is to have bus service meeting each of the north and southbound front runner trains at the American Fork Station. So much more frequent service coming out, not going as far out into the community, but what we looked at is really low ridership out on that end. But we want to supplement that, and we've got two things we identified. One is just promoting the van pool program that UTA already has in place. Van pools are very cost effective, particular for commuters. And so the Tyson plant, I think, would be a good example where people are on shifts and you can get, half a dozen people in a van with a volunteer driver, potentially subsidized by the employer. Their costs out of pocket aren't as high. They all have a savings, but much lower cost to operate because you're not paying somebody to be behind the wheel to drive it. That program's already in place. It just needs to be promoted more. I think it's a great opportunity. And so that can, again, one that can happen right away. Microtransit is an on-demand type service. And what we see for the opportunity there is to provide greater coverage in the community, both for local connections. We heard from people that they want access just to local businesses so they can get to Walmart or Smith's, whatever it may be in the community, which is not well served right now for that type of ride. But then it would also feed that fixed route service and the connections over to the front runner for commuters or anyone else going in and out of the community. So then we're looking at preserving a corridor for future enhancements, and that's where with the bus service, that as traffic congestion grows, giving priorities to buses in that corridor, potentially putting buses in a bus lane with express bus service down to the UVU campus, and with that, it would actually be a direct connection to the bus rapid transit that then serves Orem and into Provo, so that there'd be a timed connection there, shortening up that length and again, addressing that request we heard for better service to the south. Then long-term, probably looking at bus rapid transit. And I've got just a summary map that shows all of these. On the map, you can see the two park and ride lot locations. There are properties that are owned by UDOT in those areas, and this is one that actually is already in process. MAG has identified this as a capital project and starting through the process to do the planning for it and developing the funding for it. So those, again, would be a multimodal hub, if you will. We'd have the bus service there. We have the microtransit, the idea being two zones, one serving Eagle Mountain, the other Saratoga Springs. Those smaller vehicles would connect to the bus route, the fixed route service at those park and ride lot locations. So we get the coverage, we get the connection, we've got more frequent service over to Front Runner and to the east. And in the future, that extension then down to UVU and the bus rapid transit there. So that's the plan in a nutshell. And again, some things already happening. I know there have been discussions on how to possibly fund the microtransit. There's not a pot of money sitting there right now to get that started. But UTA has been doing a pilot project with microtransit in the South Valley area. So covering parts of Riverton, and South Jordan, Harriman. So that's in place. COVID kind of threw things off in terms of data collection because they started up in November and then everything changed in March. But they've extended that pilot and are looking for where they put that in place. So that, again, is one, the action I think needs to start immediately to put that planning in place, get the funding in place, and then it can move forward to be more of a comprehensive service in the communities with better connection to regional service. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
On the park and ride on Pioneer Crossing and Redwood Road, Mark, maybe something down by Public Works, because we got Pony Express going clear through. Because I just see we've got an intersection that's already really congested. If we could route that traffic maybe to there, run lights all night, it still allows them to, I don't know, just.
Right, Mayor, thank you. That was one of the concerns that we brought up, the UDOT property that is located there. I think the dot on the map, as Sean has explained to me, is concept. We want to get it somewhere in this location. But the property that is owned by UDOT is under contract to be transferred as part of a land transfer with land swap. So that corner is probably not going to be the corner where it's going to land. But again, think geographically in kind of in this area somewhere.
Great area.
Correct.
I'm just thinking as we do future regional planning, we've been preserving corridors and stuff.
Right.
Something there kind of by Public Works, we can have parking lights all night. We can
Right,
have that
and-
kind of traffic and have an amenable use.
The irony is when we had originally started our planning efforts back in even 2010, we had identified Pony Express as being the BRT, the bus transit down to the transit center. We'd identified that roadway as that, right, the backbone for that. And so it's modifying until that's built out, probably won't be the preferred route. Pioneer Crossing's pretty overcrowded, and so to have a dedicated lane on that might be a challenge, given, that this would be used, basically to coincide with the front runner traffic.
Coming out of Eagle Mountain, it's gonna have 120,000 people. The whole point of extending Pony Express, and we spent all this county money, is to prevent people turning left on Redwood Road, and now we want to put a park and ride? That they require them all to turn left. Well, no, but I'm telling you, the people then, they're not gonna drive that way.
That was brought up by
Right.
Eagle Mountain.
They're not gonna go there. The park and ride, the center is Chevron.
Right,
And Eagle Mountain. They're gonna come to our park and ride.
Well, and
Right, and I'm sure trustee Aitchison and AT are both tired of hearing from me because I was working with them on this study. But, I think that we have to realize that the park and ride locations are works in progress.
Yeah.
They're fluid, but we're
We're
just
just
trying to give
asking, what
advice.
about-
Right, and they've
There's
been
there's-
told this by both
There's land
cities.
available. Talk to Chriselle. It's ag land on the west side of Public Works would be the
That's
perfect
probably
location.
MAG, right? That's buying
yeah,
the land.
I think it's fair to say that we have represented what we suspected your sentiment would be,
Yeah.
and
Well,
they're
good.
working with us.
But it's a
they're
great
aware.
location. It, like to Mayor's point, lights all night, no problem.
Yeah. And again, just think concept of park and rides and buses now getting us to and from Front Runner on a
yeah.
regular basis.
So
is
my
really the
one
strategy.
comment is, I would rather put the money into the corridor preservation over there. That transit, basically Uber competition, I'm not a fan of government competing with the private sector.
That was my exact question.
So I'd rather personally not for our area. Well, one, I think that people who are Ubering, it's minimal. We don't have a ton of Uber out here anyway, but I'd rather let Uber and Lyft do their thing and let our do thing, bus rapid transit,
So-
put demand,
so the-
preservation corridors.
The concern is with a park and ride. If Mark gets in his car in, Harbor Bay and drives all the way to the park and ride, he's gonna, why would I get out of my car and wait for a bus and then transfer? The idea is they can, you can actually make the entire trip using UTA resources. I get the concern,
When there's enough people
about
that's
competing-
justifying this down south, they should have a bus that goes from Harbor Bay up.
right, but we're not dense enough to support bus
Topeka
lines.
comes in,
Right.
maybe, yeah.
Right, and the future's gonna change things, but, this plan is
a great
was
first
meant
step.
for dealing with the problem that we're facing right now in like the next year or two.
I just would rather put the money though into preserving corridors and getting
Yeah.
land for bus.
When I used to live out in
yards.
DC, they used to have slug lines. And slug lines was the precursor to the Ubers. And people would just line up and they'd wait for a ride and someone would show up and say, 2 to the Pentagon, that you'd jump in and you'd go, 2 to Crystal City, 2 to wherever.
I did
Yeah,
that.
and the slug lines worked great. And then if you hadn't, you knew which is the last bus you needed to be on in order to get to work on time. And if you hadn't caught a ride by then, you jump on the bus. So I think what they're doing is kind of the modern version of a slug line that used to work so well in those dense urban areas. So I think they've made great progress. I think this is a great plan for us moving forward. It doesn't resolve all of our concerns. We still have concerns. We vocalized those. And I think that we just need to express our gratitude to MAG
No, this
for
is
helping
huge,
us
yeah.
make these monumental steps for our community. And it's the
But
step
the
in the right
park and ride in
direction.
Eagle Mountain needs to be half the size of the Saratoga Springs one. I'm just saying, because the thing is they get their park and ride, then they stop by Smith's, they stop by Costco. They're planning their after hours work. Nothing against Eagle Mountain, but SR 73 is not the right location.
But, I would, to Mark's point and to what trustee Aitchison said before, I think this is, it's starting to move the needle. We've been out here, yelling and screaming, and at least we've been heard. Yeah.
That's the desire, and it's not stopped.
Right. I think getting to, hourly throughout the day bus service is an improvement over the two in the morning and the 2 in the evening that
It-
wasn't
use it
working.
more.
Yeah.
It's a monster step forward for us, and we need to be appreciative of that. Yes, it's not finished, but in concept, I think we support where.
Well, the
where
point
it's
is to
headed.
continue to give feedback, but we do appreciate it. I personally think that when people start doing it in the middle of the day, they'll start doing it more in the morning as well. It'll just become a part of their day, where now it's buses, what? Like, it's not in people's minds at all. And you start seeing buses more too, you think, oh, I can probably take the bus.
And in all fairness, trustee Acerson, when you were appointed to represent with the cities, that's the first time we've had a needle. So it is moving, and we got a needle.
We appreciate that.
So,
The first time anyone showed up.
Keep working.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you.
And keep talking to us, really. Even if there are things, I'm opening that up and you're going, don't worry, we'll keep talking. And that's just fine.
Sean's never worried about us being vocal.
I thought you were getting away from all of this, Sean. Soon. So,
I'd say along that line, we did get quite a bit of input. The interesting thing is seeing people in just little images on the box on the screen. It's great to see some of you in person finally.
That's true, yeah.
Some of us preferred being on boxes, but we'll leave that there.
Sometimes there are advantages, that's true.
Ooh, one more plug for that park and ride over by Public Works. We just put in how many apartments and townhomes? They could walk.
and
They could walk to the park and ride.
Yeah, we'll have our staff work on that with your city manager.
Or Uber. Well, Uber.
Can I just ask a couple clarifying questions on here? Like the slide where it says objectives indicate where density should be increased. I hope you're coordinating very closely with our staff on that because we already have it planned out for the city and we're likely not going to increase density somewhere else with the off chance that, and I know you don't control all of this, but that's just some feedback because we're not going to increase density in an area in hopes that we might get a bus stop. What?
Because it might come.
He's agreeing with you.
yeah,
He said because we're hoping that one day we'll get a bus stop.
Lehigh City's Mill Pond area.
Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't understand what you said.
No, he was agreeing.
I thought he said open mic day.
Who's 50, what?
He's mumbling, that's the problem. No, but I'll just say, whatever we can do to expedite service. So I used to be a rider to downtown Salt Lake. I'd take the express buses. And since they've changed it, I think I've never once read, one time in maybe, how long has it been since we've made that change?
Several years.
It's like 6, 7 years, something like that. I've rode it once just out of curiosity. And I just don't do it because I don't have an extra hour of my day. That's literally how much more time it takes. And I think the ridership probably decreased similarly. There's a lot of people in my neighborhood.
Salt Lake was cheaper, faster to drive than to go through the buses.
Yeah. Well, and I understand the logistics straight shot to get up to American Fork, but that's actually going to take the riders longer until we have a BRT. So
if I may, just to
Yeah.
speak to that point, this is one study for this area. We also have Front Runner Forward, which is, there was money that was allocated last year through the legislation to actually do some double tracking on Front Runner in strategic locations. And we've done that. We're in the process almost at this point to implement some of that strategic.
You can have an
double
express
tracking.
train.
So you can have an express train, which would be in line with the commuter traffic and cut off
30 minutes.
as much as we can.
Yeah.
The challenge is you have all these crossings at grade, and so just logistically, it's a little bit more challenging. If you were elevated, so you didn't have to deal with those crossings, then you could have a bullet train, that designated where you want to go. But we are making progress. We'll keep you posted, and we're actively pursuing additional funding that will allow us to do more in other areas as well, so.
no, I appreciate moving the needle like everyone else is saying. I'm not being negative. I'm just giving you a feedback as a writer that.
I don't see it as negative.
Yeah.
President Adams, he said, he's up north, and he said, I had a person that comes from Ogden, goes to the church office building, and with an express bus, he could get there, I thought he said 45 minutes. And then that changed, and he had to do Front Runner, and he has to do it, a change of mode, and it was like an hour and 15 minutes. He said, they're not gonna ride it.
Yeah.
So his vision is, and Wilson and Adams and Schultz and all of those, they're looking down the road and trying to help us build a system that really, really works, that people will not think of transit as just an option. It's the preferred option if you want to get through places, because you've got the air quality that we're dealing with. And that's, you can see out there,
It was gross today.
has it arrived in Saratoga Springs?
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, okay.
It's still better, but
But anyway, it's a longer term, broad system.
Yep.
Bringing all the pieces together so overall it functions well. So, and we know the growth out here is exceeded. I remember coming out to Eagle Mountain years ago and like, Eagle Mountain? You know, where is it? What is it?
past Saratoga Springs.
But they're growing, and the state realizes that, we realize it, UDOT realizes that, and it's a challenge to try to put everything in place to accommodate your needs, so, but we're aware, we're working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'm glad you were in that seat again.
It was a tough one.
Yeah, lots of competition.
Yeah. Thank you, and Mark, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
We're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is where
Perfect.
you Monty Python and run away.
Or catch the bus.
If I could just speak on a personal note. You know, the freeways are dangerous. My nephew was killed this morning in that accident that was there at Bangor. And, you know, I'm not sure what actually happened, but, you know, we need to have safe transportation. And transit, I think that it is a more viable option to get people off the road, less congestion. And I didn't share that because I want you to help understand, but we are committed to trying to keep people safe. UDOT's committed to doing that, and we appreciate all you're doing, and just help us create a system that really is going to get people where they want to go, when they want to go in a safe way. So, and I think transit will do that.
Sorry for your loss, and absolutely, we will partner with you in all along the way.
Anyway, you're great. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, we'll move to public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. If you're here for the public hearing for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendments, you'd be the first. Please hold your comments to that. Please avoid repetitive comments. Owen, you said there's nothing sent in? Yeah, any? What? Yeah, you're gonna have to go over there.
You got 3 minutes.
Okay, seeing no public input at this time, I will close the public input portion of our meeting. Reports from the council.
I have one.
Councilman McComber.
So, speaking of dogs going to the neighbor's yard, so, I just want to make sure we don't lose night of this, because at the retreat, we had, I think it was a side conversation. We need to get the stations with the bags at Inlet Park, because the trail system there, the staff, they're not hired to shovel poop off of soccer fields for the kids to play at Inlet Park. So if we have the bags, it works. The bags, people are maybe 80% better at doing it. But Hessen said it could take up to a half hour. That's how much poop is in Inlet Park. People are using it as an off-leash park, and so from a code enforcement, we should probably just, especially as the weather starts to warm up in the coming months. I also mentioned we need to get more of the boxes with the bags at our trails, especially, and coming out of your neighborhood, the park that's in Dallas Ridge there, the one that the city park, there's a bag station at it's the one.
One at the front or the one?
The one above you.
Okay.
The one west of you, the big one there with the playground. There's a bag station at the pavilion. Problem is the trail corridor,
All the way around.
and it continues from Sunrise Meadows and things. So maybe one right there, and I just know these things because I play at that park because I have a friend who lives there, and I was like, this is disgusting. I'm not playing in this park. Because people will walk and then they let their leash go 25 feet, and they go poop in the park, and then they come back and they keep going. So at the entrance there, I think on the south entrance, the trail that comes in,
I would do the.
the north
south-
entrance, and the north entrance maybe.
Yeah, the north,
When Sunrise Meadows is coming through your neighborhood and then into your park.
northeast is where,
Yeah, the
that
northeast
corner,
trail.
you see a lot of poo.
A lot of poop in that corner. Last thing, we love our horses, and we love the fact that the horses like to use our city, and they have every right to use our city. But just like a dog, they need to pick up their horse. And they're coming down that cement trail, and they're in that same park. And I'm not kidding, I saw 3 horse piles in that park. Unacceptable. They need to be good neighbors, and so we just need to, basically, that park is becoming the poop playground. It's horrible. So I just wanted to make sure that, and then really just with those horses.
to Outlet Park?
Outlet Park, yeah, instead of Inlet Park. So.
Mark, you want to respond to that?
Do you want to bring that back next meeting?
Do you want like a 13-gallon bag box station there for the
Well,
horses?
the horses are easier because there's 3 horse stables. We go to those places and say, come on, if you're not, we're gonna start finding just all of you. I'm okay finding all of them. If none of them want to admit who the horse is, I have no problem putting a fee on the horses if they want to go off in our neighborhoods.
I've got a note here for signage and.
We just need to reach out to those horse companies and say, come on, let's be good neighbors.
Is the one gone now, or is it going?
They're still there.
The equines place up there is going to be going away, Coyote Creek.
One of them, so there'll still be 2.
Blue Barn's going away soon too.
So, yeah, it's just horrible. And then the last thing is coming into on Pioneer Crossing. I don't know if it just got missed with the winterization, but we're getting a lot of tumbleweed because we didn't take care of, and so it's getting onto the roads, and then people are swerving to miss it. Speaking of safe, so this is our chance to participate in safe traffic, because heaven forbid you bump a tumbleweed with your car, but you think that it was a child that they're dodging. It's amazing. I literally was coming on and the person went across 2 lanes to dodge a tumbleweed.
Sorry, this was at Pioneer
Pioneer
Crossing?
Crossing coming into the city, so coming down, all of that on both on the north and south sides of Pioneer Crossing. We just need to,
Through SLR's property, basically.
yeah, coming up to Redwood Road, basically. And then coming, because I do appreciate the work was done on Market Street and stuff. They did clean that up, so I appreciate that. It's just, tumbleweed is a bad thing out here when we get the wind, and people are crazy about it. So, thanks.
Councilman Wilden.
Just one item, and Councilman Porter can add to it if he'd like. We had, as part of our legislative assignment, had a meeting with Senator Anderegg, and Owen and Mark Christensen were there. At least from my perspective, it was one of the more productive meetings we've ever had with the senator.
He showed up.
Oh, he showed up, but no, he said some pretty favorable things. The legislation is being pushed last year around the lake. He's not supportive of it in the form that it was. If it does come back, it wouldn't be a fee all lobbied, not all levied on Saratoga. It'd be either a water district or county-wide thing, which is amenable, and some other things. I mean, I can't remember all the other things, but that was the one thing that was on my mind that was a fairly positive interaction. So it was good.
Mark, like with the mayor's huddle, they were talking about it would be a per sewer connection. So everybody would pay it if you connect to the sewer?
So they looked at a bunch of different funding options, and right now it appears that it's going to be a toilet tax, which would be up to a certain dollar amount per household for
The high number.
for the fee. So again, it's,
Are they leaving that to the new ULA board to determine?
I apologize. I had that legislation forwarded to me. I just have not had an opportunity to read it yet. But again, it's basically trying to hit at the sewer. They're using the sewer as the method to try and charge.
Well, Mark.
Not looking at the watershed, though.
They're looking in the county, not the whole
Yeah,
watershed.
we brought up the idea of the entire watershed, and it was noted. But I think the county is what they're headed towards.
To do the watershed, you're gonna have representation from all those different areas on the board.
Yeah.
Ironically,
It's already quite a large board. I think it's 15 member.
15 and growing.
Well, I think some of the things, part of it, phosphorus levels are trying to get down to it. They've done core samples. There's been phosphorus in that lake longer than there's been people in Utah. So it's never going to be algae-free.
It's never going to be Lake Tahoe.
No. We're gonna have slogans that say, keep it brown. But, Councilman Karn and I talked the other day after the mayor's huddle, because we've got the same concern. With the 15 seats, they've given some seats to legislators, buddies, friends, developers. But seats that are left, the 7 seats that are left for the cities, at some point, there's got to be a guarantee that those of us who are invested and have shoreline have priority for those seats. Because the guy in Alpine,
We're named
Yeah.
seat in there.
that we are named seat.
The shoreline cities have a name.
They're one of the
So,
7 for
I think there's four cities that have permanent seats, and then
Which 4 is it?
it's us, Vineyard.
Sorry,
Linden?
Chris, I had you on mute. Your 3
Yeah, when
minutes are up.
I checked that after we talked about it,
Okay.
when I got the draft of the bill, and we are a named seat.
because we have the largest shoreline.
We've got 11 miles of shoreline. Vineyard's bragging about their 3 miles of public access. I was going, okay, well,
Great.
I don't know what Frankly Provo has, but I think we might be the
have
biggest.
50% of the marinas on
Yeah.
the lake, too.
So yeah, we're a named permanent seat.
Okay,
Because we have 2 private.
perfect.
we might have more than that.
More than 50% of the marinas on the lake?
We might, because you've got Provo, Linden.
Well, we're probably closer to 90% with
we
all
have
the
4.
snipe ones off the
We have
backyards.
4.
Yeah, we'll have 4.
Yeah.
We have 3 and 1, we have 4, but it's not operator owners.
Right.
Because we have the 2 private.
So just to follow that up, I did provide a copy of the draft to staff to start reviewing. I know the session started today, and I don't believe the bill sponsors opened any more feedback from municipalities at this point.
That's my understanding.
So we'll have to see where that goes.
Okay.
Well, I do think Andrig, he seems, last year, it wasn't a positive interaction. I'll just say that. He said, I'm going to go with what I want to go with. But this time, he seemed very much more open to listening to our ideas and feedback. And did I say councilman? I meant Senator Andrig, and then also Representative Moss. He's always been super supportive, so.
Yeah, he's been great for us. So, okay. Councilman Karn, or Porter?
So the Traverse Mountain Sentinel Lands, not Central Lands, they met, today's Tuesday, so it would have been last week. I'm trying to figure out what day it was. We met last week. They gave an update. We're looking at, somewhere in the neighborhood of, there's a couple different pots of money, but I think they're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million in order to preserve land and open space around Camp Williams, compatible uses. So that's good news, and I think part of that is going to be targeted towards the second half of the wildflower parcel up there. So,
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Mark, anything from administration?
2 items. First, Dave, do you have an introduction you'd like to make?
Mayor and council, about a month ago, we hired another senior planner, and so we'd like to have Kent Page just kind of step to the podium, introduce himself, grill him for all you can, no, just kidding. And just give you a chance to meet him.
Having me. It's been interesting to hear your work meeting and your discussions going back and forth. So most recently I worked with Tokerville City, and then I've worked with the city of West Jordan. I've also worked with the state trust lands. So I've also worked with Tooele County and Morgan County, and so that's some of my background. It's good to be here.
Perfect.
And Kent,
We have a lot of work here.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, senior planner. We've got a lot of senior planner work, and he's jumping right in.
Yeah, you'll definitely be busy.
Okay.
Mayor and council, thank you very much. We had a great retreat, so appreciate your time last weekend. It was fantastic. And so thank you very much on that. And then we have some additional updates that we'll be bringing. We have, those presentations that we'll start bringing next council meeting in preparation for some of the goals that you've set for us. And then I believe that's it. Owen, Ken, did you have any other items that you need to? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay.
Pardon?
Councilman,
Oh, yes, sorry. Day at the legislature is tomorrow, for those of you that are planning on going. Who's planning on attending? Chris Porter?
No, this is the local officials.
Local Officials Day.
I was just going to try, let me see.
Youth council.
So I talked
No problem.
to Aaron, they have 22 youth council people going.
Oh, that's good.
Well, you're still the mayor pro temp, I think you should be there.
I will not be there tomorrow.
So, again, if anyone is interested in carpooling, just reach out to me, let me know. I'll be heading up about 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Consent items. I will entertain a motion on the consent items.
Move to approve the consent items as listed on the calendar, on the
second.
agenda.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Karn, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Councilman Karn?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
McComber? Aye. Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the public hearing tonight for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendment.
It's always fun to see how you're
I like that we're an hour and a half in and getting to business item 1.
It was a good work session.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is Budget Amendment number 4. A little disappointed I lost my whole audience here.
I know you were feeling popular. You're like, they're here for me.
Oh, wait, the budget, leave.
Everybody's excited to hear about numbers. At least I am. So,
Mark is, if it's sewer tied.
yeah. This budget amendment, most of the items have to deal with the retention plan, various adjustments to various adjustments to the various capital projects, just mid-year adjustments there, and then also additional monies for water right purchases. So that's most of the items here. Are there any questions for staff?
I have a comment.
I have a comment.
Okay, let's do the public hearing really quick. This is a public hearing. Anybody here for comments? Owen, was anything set in? Please be respectful. Okay, we will close the public hearing. One of these days, I'm going to pay somebody to come make a comment.
You can't pay your wife.
Karn?
Okay, Councilman Karn, you had a comment?
Yeah, so much of this amendment has to do with the retention plan, and I understand that, but I wanted to call out the great work that staff has done to bring in a lot of the grant funding in this budget amendment. I don't know what the total number is, just looking at it, but we're looking at several $1 million in grant funding that staff has worked very hard to bring in that will accelerate a lot of the capital projects we've looked at as goals, and we're going to be able to move faster and leverage this grant money to go get more grant money, which is a lot of fun to think about. But it's just great work by the staff behind this to go get those grants and help push these projects.
What projects that wouldn't have happened because we had to do the salary
For instance, the
adjustment,
North
yeah.
Marina, it's going to really help us push the North Marina along, especially with, the grant proposals we're going after, leveraging these grants and our matching money. It's fantastic work.
So to continue the Love Fest, my comment is, I'm glad you didn't steal mine. As soon as you started, I was worried you were going to steal it. But I want to thank the residents, the 3 people maybe on the camera, but I want this in the record for sure. I want to thank the residents for buying local, because the sales and use tax is coming in $1 million higher than what we were anticipating. That offset a huge portion of the salary adjustments that we had to make. And I just want to continue, and that's Costco at a small margin, right? We don't get all of Costco yet because we have an agreement with them, and we still came in $1 million above. And that's because residents are buying local, and we're only getting more businesses that are gonna come that'll allow them to even buy more locally, with, not having to go to American Fork or Lehigh. These stores are gonna be here now. So again, I'm always pounding that when I talk to residents, like, what can I do to make Saratoga better? Buy local. If you're gonna buy gas, you're gonna buy groceries, drive through Lehigh and American Fork and come to Saratoga Springs, even though it might be out of your way.
I always do.
I do too.
always do.
Like when I am like I'm really desperate and I have to buy gas somewhere else, I make sure I get past Lehigh. That's all.
He made me push him the last mile just to make it into Saratoga Springs.
I thought he was just doing you a favor for fitness.
The fitness stuff. But no, $1 million. I know, Mark, I appreciate you guys always come in really conservative in the numbers, but that's one of the biggest jumps I've seen in my 12 years. So I just really want to thank the residents, so thank you.
Perfect.
And we're talking about 2 quarters only out of 4.
Yeah.
Half the year, yeah, exactly.
Okay. If there's no other comments or love fest, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve public hearing item 1 as stated on the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Carn,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podesta.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have need for closed session?
Say no, say no, say no.
No, let's pass.
Okay, and I will close the meeting.